Hi friends, Miss Stephanie here. Today I'm going to share with you an art form that has been around for thousands of years and for good reason. Weaving. It is so relaxing, you can create so many bright colorful patterns, and it can even become a useful object or just a pretty object you can hang in your house. Now, you don't have to have any traditional tools used for weaving. We can use ordinary things from home, like a piece of cardboard, maybe about the size of your hand. As long as it's square or rectangular and stiff, it'll work great. Then you'll need yarn or string, ribbons, lace, even shoelaces, anything that's flexible and maybe you can tie in a knot. That'll work fine. Then you'll need scissors, ever handy, just an ordinary pencil, and last but not least, a paper clip if you have it. All right. With those things and a dash of perseverance, you can weave. Let's get started. In order to weave, you need a loom. So grab your scissors and a pencil and that cardboard and plan out 8 notches that you'll cut in 2 different sides, 2 opposite sides of that cardboard. Make sure the notches are about as deep as your fingernail and about a fingernail width apart. Make sure you don't cut your fingernail though. And if your piece of cardboard is either bigger or smaller than mine, you can do more or fewer notches. The important thing is that you have the same number of notches on both sides. Okay, you've got your loom, you've got your supplies. Now it's time to pull out the thread. Pick the color that you like to be your warp thread. What is a warp thread? It is the vertical thread that goes back and forth through every single notch. And you're going to weave your other threads through it. So it's a pretty important thread. It's going to hold the whole thing together. So make sure you have plenty of it. And starting with the end, stick a tail through the farthest notch. This is the back side, so I'm going to secure it here, and that tail is going to hang down the back, and I'm going to tie it in a minute to the other side. But then I'm going to bring it down through the partner notch on the opposite side and secure it there as well. Then I'm going to go back up and around, secure it, and I'm going to keep doing this for each notch next door until I've secured all of the loop. So from this point, we're going to pick our first weft thread. So what is a weft? A weft is the horizontal thread that you weave with, and you can remember this because you go from left to right. So we're going to use this paper clip because in traditional weaving, they usually have a needle. I don't expect you to have a needle at home, so we're going to use a paper clip. If you don't have one, or if you don't like it, you don't have to bother, but I think you'll find it to be sort of helpful. To weave our weft, we're going to create a pattern through the warp threads, going over, under, all the way through the threads. So it can be kind of hard to do this, so I'm going to use this pencil to kind of set up that pattern ahead of time, because it's really easy to weave a pencil. Okay, so now that we've got a great start, it's time to remove the pencil, and because in weaving we're always creating an up and down pattern, over, under, we're going to turn around, going the other direction, and starting where we left off. So the last thread was under, so the next step is going to be to go over, under, all the way to the end, all the way back. And now we can just tunnel that thread right through and pull it through. Now, the pencil can also be handy to kind of shimmy the thread up. You don't want the warp thread to show too much, so making sure all the threads are snug together will make it look really nice. Now, this is a really important point. If you pull the thread, look, it makes this warp thread kind of wonky, and it's gonna not look great, because if you do that over time, it's gonna create this hourglass shape. and it's not going to look great. So I'm just going to loosely lay it here so that it makes a gentle loop, and it'll naturally tighten later, but we're not going to pull it too tight right now. Okay, and we're just going to keep going. So going back the other direction, thread your pencil, you get the idea. Now, I'm going to pull it right through, and oops, and you'll notice you start to get the hang of it. Now, it's possible the pencil is kind of in your way, or maybe you get a pretty good handle on it, so you can just slide it through all the threads just to give you some space to work underneath them. So let's change it up, and instead of weaving all the way across our loom, let's do half and half. What would that look like? So I've got my brown thread here, going to thread it in my paperclip, and I'm going to start on the other side than where I left off. This is because we have these tails sticking out of our weaving, and we don't want too many of those on the same side, so we're going to spread them out a little bit so that they're easier to tuck in later. Okay, so I'm going to do my same old pattern, starting on the other side, and I do want to match what's above it, so the last one was over, so I'm going to go under. This time I'm going to stop halfway across the loom, right at that fourth warp thread, and I'm going to make a U-turn. I'm going to loop down underneath and go back as if my loom is shorter than normal. So I'm going to just bring it right back like I did with the others. I'm going to shimmy that up, and then I can continue by going back and forth just as long as I'd like. Now you're going to choose your second color and thread it on, and you're going to do the same thing but on the other side, except this time you're going to share one warp string with your other color. Now you can keep going with these kinds of patterns as long as you want, but I'm going to change it up and add something that you might enjoy, and that's called Riya. Riya is the weaving term for fringe, and you can add it anywhere in your weaving. How do you make Riya? Well, you're going to need the color of your choice, and you're going to have to cut that color into short, equal threads. So the quickest way to do this is to wrap it around your hand just as many times as you want. You can always do it again if you need more thread. And then you're going to slip it off and make one cut through that loop. And suddenly you've got a bunch of short threads. Now you're ready to create your Riya on your loom. So take one thread and pick two warp strings that you want to tie your Riya onto. I'm going to pick these two. Then you're going to lay that thread on top of those two like a U. And you're going to take one side and slip it behind, underneath, and through the center. Just like that. Then you're going to take the other one and do the exact same thing. Slide it behind, in, through the center. Grab both tails and slide them up to the top. And it's going to create kind of a little knot there. Very loose knot. Then you're going to pick another one and slip over to the next 2 warp strings, the next pair, and lay that U, slip one end behind and through the center. The other one goes behind through the center. Grab both tails and slide up. That's it. And you can keep doing this to fill in the other pairs between those other warp strings to make a nice full fringe effect. Now this thread is pretty thin, so I'm adding 2 rows here. You might just want to do 1 row, you might want to do 5 rows. It's up to you. Then you can pick a new color and decide what you want to do next. I'm going to fill in underneath the brown and then go across with this new color. The great thing about weaving is you can really make it whatever you'd like. Experiment with different colors, different textures, different amounts of Riya, whatever you'd like. It's done when you say it's done. So I'm going to show you how I finish my weaving, and then at the end I will demonstrate how you can take it off the loom and then hang it on the wall if you'd like. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to need to tidy up the little tails on the end, but first I need to remove it from the loom. So get rid of that piece of tape. I'm going to turn it over and cut all those strings in the back. Just one quick little snip. And then I'm going to remove one side of them. The other side will help hold the weaving in place while I work. And so here's the back and the front. Now these warp strings here on the bottom, I'm actually going to use them to help me secure the weaving. So I'm going to divide them into little pairs and tie those pairs to each other, like that. Now we need to tidy up the sides. All of those little tails, we're going to tuck them back into the weaving by pulling them through little loops in the back, just like that. So when we're done, it'll look like this. And no one's going to see what the back looks like. When you're ready, you're going to remove the other warp threads from the loom, and you're going to tie them off like we did the other side and trim them as short as you can. Then you can slide that pencil or a stick or something else of your choice right through those loops in the warp thread that you tied. Then you'll tie some string around that pencil. And finally, you will tie those strings to each other. And then all you have to do is find a place to hang your weaving, and voila! Well done, you made a weaving.